Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the 6 highest skill cap brawlers within the game right now. So we did this video near enough a year ago now, so we're going to be looking back, seeing if the ranking has changed, whether some brawlers are more high skill cap, because as you guys probably know, like, the game has developed a lot in terms of skill, especially since the last World Championships. You know, Brawl Stars kind of got redefined with the last winners with Zeta. So before we jump into the video, make sure using the credit code in the shop, that'd be greatly appreciated. And without further ado, let's jump into it. Alright guys, so jumping into the 6th high skill cap brawler in the game right now. I've gone for a bit of a controversial one for number 6. I've gone with Max. So Max, on the base design, you may not feel like Max is like the hardest brawler to play, and you're kind of right, but I'm talking whenever you're playing like competitive and you're playing with Max in a good combo. I feel like Max is hard to master just because you have to really focus the most with his brawlers in terms of your juice. So by that I mean, you know, a lot of brawlers you have to obviously try and stay alive and juke well with, but Max in particular, especially if you want to win your middle matchup, you know, Max isn't like the strongest brawler in that 1v1 setting, but with a good jukes, being able to get into the enemy's face, Max can really pop off and strive. So I'm thinking of a map in particular, which is Shooting Star. So you can just think on the front of it, brawlers like Piper, brawlers like Nani, you know, they completely dominate on that map. But when you have a really good Max who's got really good jukes and can pressure the enemy's back, you know, I feel like that says something about the entirety of like the game and like how much of a skill cap it is with this brawler, because not everyone can just pull off a Max in a long range map like that. So of course there's going to be a lot of other scenarios like that with certain brawlers, but I just feel like Max is a brawler that's kind of hard to master. Like, I only see a few really strong Max players when it comes to competitive, you know, the likes of Tensai, KC, where their Maxes just can completely dominate. I remember in the Max meta when it was like Jean, Max, Sandy, like KC would literally win games on his own last year because of how good he was, especially in Brawl. Like, he makes so many amazing plays with his gadget, and Max was never really that OP. Like, our super is really strong, but in a core mechanics as well, not really the strongest as well, but just with his jukes and his movement, being able to get close and personal with the enemy, I just felt like this, more than any other brawler, you really need to focus on those jukings. So yeah, maybe I've overrated a little bit, but I just feel like Max is just really underappreciated as a brawler and how much skill it actually requires to play this brawler. So should be able to close out the win here. 3% left. Unfortunately, again, I haven't got really like the best maps to show off, like how hard it can be to play brawlers like Max, and yeah, you can really struggle. So even maps like I'm trying to think of it, it's like Super Stadium, for example, where in that mid matchup, like, you might not have the best matchup. It can be really hard to win as a Max, but again, like, the good movement, being able to pressure your enemies with just your movement alone with Max is going to be able to win you games in some circumstances. So we should be able to get a Daryl down here. Hopefully my Byron can heal me up so I can get close to this zone. So with an Amber, can't really juke that well, but we should be able to have enough time to get on that zone. So yeah, Max, I feel like, is one of those underappreciated brawlers when it comes to skill cap. Let's hop into number 5. Alright guys, so jumping into the 5th high skill cap brawler in the game right now, we have none other than Nani. So we're going to have to probably play a lot of hot zone in today's video just because the maps are completely down bad right now. But yeah, in terms of skill cap, Nani is definitely a brawler that is really hard to play, especially when you first pick up this brawler. I remember when Nani was first released, it was just so weird trying to land shots with Nani, but it's high risk, high reward with Nani in the terms like obviously the shot is just extremely hard to hit for the most part. But as I said, if you're a really good Nani playing on the maps, again, like Shooting Star, I can think of where Nani is really strong on, like a Nani, a good Nani can just completely pop off and change the tide of the game. But if your Nani isn't popping off, you know, it can be really hard. And again, I'll go back to, like, especially if you're facing off against a really speedy composition, or, you know, a teammate, well, not a teammate, an enemy that's got really good jukes, you know, Nani's going to be really hard to hit those consistent shots with. So like, a good player can easily read a Nani and just juke the pattern, especially on the longer range distances. So that's why I just feel like it's really hard to master this brawler, because it can just be really frustrating if you don't play it completely perfect. So of course the head can also be pretty hard to hit as well, especially when it comes to those more skilled players. Like, there's different ways you can juke the head, so, you know, successfully hitting that head every single time is actually pretty hard. It's a lot harder than it actually looks. Like, people think you should just hit that head every single time, but trust me, it's a lot harder to try and, you know, juke the enemies out with their patterns. So we're just getting close to the win here. We can just TP onto this Pam and we can just spam the shots. So that's obviously like the only non-skillful thing about Nani is when you play in heist, you can just TP onto the safe over and over again and spam auto aim. But other than that, it's like extremely hard to, you know, hit those shots consistently. A lot of the times you have to bend your shot around corners to try and hit the enemies. You know, it's just really awkward trying to hit the consistent shots with Nani. A lot of the times you're having to aim just a little bit short so you can at least land a few shots onto him. But yeah, Nani going to be a really hard brawler to master. Let's hop into number 4. All right, guys, jumping into the 4th high skill cap brawler right now, we have Stu. So Stu, I feel like is a hard brawler to really pop off on, especially if you're up against your counters like here. We're up against Tara, which is a pretty decent counter to Stu. I feel like you have to really play perfectly. Like, you can make some really cool plays with Stu, being able to pop off with your super. A lot of the times it might require some good internet connection, well, good ping, just because, again, you can get multiple supers off in a row. But for the most part, like, Stu is pretty hard to play and pretty hard to master. Maybe against, you know, brawlers like Rico, who Stu can counter pretty well. You know, it's quite easy to play, but when in a difficult setting, you know, a good Stu can still work his way out of a bad situation, which I don't think I'm a good Stu whatsoever. And there's only really a few really talented Stus when it comes to Brawl Stars. You know, straight away I can think of Semantic, where his Stu has like single-handedly won on the game because of how like well he has mastered the brawler, like being able to constantly not waste your super. And that's obviously a really big thing about Stu as well. You don't want to waste your super in any moment, because a good team can really like give Stu the distance and not allow him to build up a super. That's where you can really struggle with Stu. So being able to have that discipline, not waste your super a lot of the times, you know, it's a lot harder than it seems. So a penalty kick is obviously a bit of an easier map to get your super on, because there's a lot of walls. You're going to be able to fight the enemies for the most part. So we should be able to get onto this Tara now. She's probably going to pop her pets. Okay, she's not actually popping them, but that should be an easy walk in for our Primo. Okay, somehow he messed that up. Okay, we can finally score that in. So especially on those longer range maps as well, you don't really see Stu too much in this meta, to be honest. He's kind of fallen off a little bit, but I think when Stu was first released, I think if I flash back to the video about a year ago, Stu wasn't on the list, but you know, a lot of people had the feeling that Stu could be a high skill cap brawler, and I feel like they were definitely right, because Stu beforehand, you could just get infinite knockbacks. That was kind of crazy to think about, that Stu was ever able to knock back brawlers, you know, on every single super. Like, that was crazy. Imagine Stu in that type of playstyle right now, just being able to super onto literally anyone, knock them back. I can't believe that I even reached a game. That's kind of crazy to think about. But anyways, this should be the win wrapped up right now. Only 10 seconds left. There's not enough time for these guys to score, especially on penalty kick. It can be incredibly hard to score. So yeah, that's going to be the 4th high skill cap brawler in the game. Let's hop into number 3. Alright guys, so jumping into the 3rd high skill cap brawler in the game, we have no surprises here. We have Colt. So Colt is a hard brawler to master. Maybe on the front of it is not completely the hardest, but when we're talking about those 1v1 situations, especially down the lane, you know, a good player can easily juke the Colt shots. So with Colt, like no other brawler really, you have to really learn the juke and movement patterns of the enemies. You have to really see what like way they like to juke, especially when you're aiming to a couple of shots in a row. You know, you have to change up your shooting style a lot of the times. And again, he's not really the strongest brawler like mechanically. You know, he just shoots 6 bullets in a straight line. There's so many different brawlers that have like way better gadgets that are just a lot easier to hit. For example, their main attacks can shoot around walls. You know, you have all these crazy mechanics, whilst Colt is a very basic brawler. That's why I feel like he's really hard to master in certain instances, especially on those long range maps. I can think of like the good maps that he's one of the maps that he's good on, like Safe Zone, for example. You know, it can be really hard to win your lane a lot of the times. You have to fully focus and really look and study of the juking patterns of the enemies, but we're able to just destroy the enemies there. That's going to be the 3rd high skill cap. Let's hop into number 2. Alright guys, jumping into the 2nd high skill cap brawler in the game, we have a Dynamite. So Dynamite can be incredibly hard to master, just because there's so many brawlers in the game right now that seem to counter Dynamite. You know, for example, straight away we're up against a Mortis, which Mortis will just absolutely destroy Dynamite every single time. Yeah, Dynamite, especially for me, is a really hard brawler to play, just because, again, his shots can be pretty hard to hit. A lot of the times people can just walk up to him and kill him, and especially on some maps, you know, a good Dynamite can really pop off. I can think of maps like some heist maps like Pit Stop, Hot Potato, especially this map as well. It's actually a map which Dynamite tends to thrive in, but again, it just easily countered. That's one of the main reasons why I feel like he's a really high skill cap brawler, because there's so many brawlers which you've got to look at and find different ways of trying to beat them, whereas, you know, other brawlers in the meta, they can easily just find ways of at least escaping them, whilst Dynamite, you know, just look at his Mortis. It's just so hard to actually escape him. Maybe with Dyna Jump and a few plays you can escape him, but again, there's just so many assassin brawlers in this meta as well. The likes of Fang, the likes of Daryl, the likes of Mortis, for example. There's just so many brawlers that can just latch onto you straight away. Dynamite doesn't really have that defensive capabilities to, you know, get out of that situation. So we should be able to get, okay, not able to get the Daryl down as well. But also his Dyna Jump star power is actually hard to master. I don't think it really has much competitive viability though. Like I hardly see, well, I don't see anyone really use Dyna Jump when it comes to competitive, just because it's not actually that great. I guess that's kind of high skill cap in a sense, like you can make some cool plays, but we're talking practically, I don't think Dyna Jump is really that needed. So yeah, other than that, Dynamite is just incredibly hard to master, especially where you can look at people like Lucky Bear, for example. He just makes it look easy. So unless you're Lucky Bear, just don't use Dyna Jump. It's just not really that worth it unless you want to be that Dynamite troll. We should be able to get a stun on Mortis. Okay, no, this is just looking very, very bad right now. I just can't kill the Mortis. It's just right underneath our feet. It's just so incredibly hard to play this brawler sometimes. So yeah, that's going to be the second hardest. Let's hop into number one. Alright guys, jumping into the high skill cap brawler in the game right now. Don't think it's changed from a year ago. It is still Mortis. So Mortis, I feel like more than any other brawler, you have to really weigh up every single different interaction. Like every interaction changes with Mortis, just because you got to really weigh up like how close you are to your bats, you know, whether you can chain your bats onto the enemies to try and keep you alive even longer. And of course, you got to weigh up whether brawlers have like a stun cancellation or anything like that. It can be really frustrating playing Mortis a lot of the times, because again, like you can waste your bats once and it can be incredibly hard for you to get into the game. There's just so many different ways you can outplay the enemies with Mortis and really pop off. So yeah, good Mortis can really carry 1v3, but a bad Mortis like myself, as you can see, I'm losing the Mortis 1v1, can really cause a pain, and especially if you're playing with randoms whenever it comes to Brawl. You know, if you're not a good Mortis, they're just going to be able to feed the enemy supers basically the entire time. So even after playing Brawl Stars for like 3-4 years, I'm still a trash Mortis. So it just goes to show, like, he's incredibly hard to master. So of course, you know, you've got a few Mortis mods out there, you know, the likes of RZM, for example, the likes of YDE. Like, they've really learned and mastered this brawler, and to be fair, it does take a lot of skill. So we're going to break the ankles of this Primo, which of course takes a little bit of skill with Mortis, but trust me, I'm absolutely trash with Mortis. But yeah, that's going to be my list. Make sure you're commenting down below what you think of the high skill cap brawlers in the game. I feel like I've at least hit the mark on 5 or 6 of them. Of course, there's a few more brawlers which have some high skill cap as well. I did miss off like the likes of Piper. I feel like Byron is kind of hard to use sometimes as well. There's a few other brawlers, so excited to see what you guys say in the comment section below. But don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.